Have you ever seen a UFO? Bigfoot or some ghosts? Contact Elder Susie. She is the host. We really like to hear from you. You can tell us then all about the aliens. And if you're one of them, we really need to know. We really need to know. Really need to know, or we will come and get you in the night.
Hi, welcome to Out of This World with Susan and Willy. I'm Susan Spooler, your host, and today we're going to be speaking with Bill Hall. Bill is an author and a haunted home investigator, as well as studying phenomena related to UFOs. Hi, Bill. How are you today?
Great. Thanks for having me, Susan.
Thanks for being here with us. Bill has written a book named The Haunted House Diaries, the true story of a quiet Connecticut town. Bill, tell us something about the Torrington, Connecticut haunted home.
Well, the Haunted House Diaries is written about a unique paranormal flap in Connecticut. And basically at the center, or at least what appears to be the most active home that we can find, as the lady of the house, Donna, has kept a diary spanning 50 years. Well, she's kept it since she was a teenager. She's in her 60s now. And her family has lived in this 1793 farmhouse for 6 generations. So there's only been actually 3 different family lines that have lived in the house. So that's a main focus of the book. The book also deals with the fact that this varied phenomena occurring in the area is of all kinds. UFO sightings, ancestors appearing, other haunted houses in the area, Bigfoot sightings, as well as a possible military base. So the area kind of has it all.
Wow.
It's a literal paranormal circus, as my good friend Paulino calls it.
Okay. Wow. So, so you're saying about this? There's been Bigfoot sightings as well as been UFO phenomenon as well.
Yes, I think it's a good example of how we're beginning to see, or have been seeing in the last few years, especially predominantly, that we used to think of this kind of phenomenon in silos. UFO people didn't want to talk to the ghost people, or the ghost people didn't want to talk to nobody wanted to talk to Bigfoot people, or and I'm being a little facetious, but the idea really is we used to look at these things as in silos, or more in silos. Now we understand that there definitely is a connection as far as their occurrences, that it's usually, not always, but it's usually not just one house that's haunted. And matter of fact, I think at the UFO convention last year it was said that, I forget the percentage, but it was a very high percentage. I think it was 83%, but I could misremember that. But when there's UFOs, there's often other paranormal phenomena, including haunted houses in the area. So it seems that this phenomena, we're looking at it in a more holistic way, and this area in Connecticut is a prime example of that. In this case, that there's virtually all kinds of phenomena that occurs through there, and so it's a really great example of how this seems to be related, at least in how these things get here, whether it's parallel world intersect or the energy, whatever, insert whatever theory you'd like there.
Well, one of the you were mentioning about how the various groupings of people don't want to affiliate with each other, but I think as time has gone on, it's good to see that they're recognizing the commonality between a lot of these same experiences. And your good friend Paul Eno, we spoke with him recently, and he said that if there's something that's going on in the home that's paranormal or that can't be explained, that they look upon that as a haunting or a ghost. Whereas if something like that happens outside of the home, they see that as a UFO phenomenon. Would you tend to agree with that, or what's your take on that?
Oh, no, I completely agree with that. I think it's a great point that we see and interpret these things just like we do everything else in our life, in the context of our own beliefs, our own interpretations, theories. So when something happens in a house, we think haunted house. And when something happens outside, we think UFO. And something that we may think is a ghost could be quote unquote an alien, or vice versa. And so these things aren't as clear cut unless they appear exactly in the way in which we would perceive them that way. But absolutely right. And this area is a good example of that. The family described to me a Bigfoot encounter that they didn't know was Bigfoot. They just thought it was just another one of the many paranormal, strange experiences in that area. But as they described it to me, I said, well, this is a classic. And, they don't know because they don't read up on Bigfoot and stuff. It was a classic, Bigfoot kind of sighting. And so, these things, we do interpret that. There's things that happen in the house that they wouldn't say, oh, this is UFO related, but it has more in commonality with that than with a quote unquote haunting. So, I definitely agree with it, and it's that's why we have to be careful of the assumptions that we make because we could limit our thinking. What's a ghost versus what's an alien versus. So I think they are all related. Maybe in the way they travel or appear or the way these things intersect, not that they're necessarily, of course, interacting with each other, although who knows, maybe sometimes they are. But
well, I know that Billy Penning and Ronnie LeBlanc from Leominster, they will be speakers also at the conference, where Bill will be one of our wonderful speakers at our Greater New England UFO conference on Saturday, October 17th of 2015 at Leominster City Hall. And Billy and Ronnie grew up in Leominster, as did I, and their experience has been with Bigfoot. And they have plaster castings that they found that they created with the plaster. There were footprints on the ground, and then they poured plaster into them to make the castings. And they have had some interesting experiences where marbles, marbles that you would play with as a child, have appeared, and they would find when they've been thinking of their experiences or when they've been in the woods, these marbles will appear like the cat's eye type. They'll be, say, green one day, and then when they look at the marble again the next day, it will change to yellow, or it'll change to another color. And this is something that has been very common within the different investigators that are out in the field. Have you heard of anything like that, Bill?
Yeah, I have heard of some things with marbles. There was interesting diary entry Donna had about some of the things happening with jewelry, which is not uncommon. Maybe it's because of the metals, but with a ring actually balancing itself on top of all things marbles. I don't know if that's related. There's a lot of things that, of course, happen in our area that is very, very puzzling and interesting too. So, and that I think is one of the neat things about this case is in asking Paul and Shane Serway, who was involved in Mark D'Antonio, which of course we well known from MUFON and,
yes.
and the convention. The interesting thing about the Haunted House Diaries' case is there's things that people say, oh yeah, I've heard of that before, and then there's other things along. I never came across that, So it just has a very wide variety of things, and I think that's that's what made it the most interesting for me. And and as Paul had said, that it's the deepest and widest ranging case he's ever tackled. And he told me, he says, it makes me wonder, what I've been missing all these years,
Right.
or in other cases. But I think as we go and we learn, we look for other things. I mean, back in the 70s, if a house was haunted, we wouldn't necessarily wonder about, how many other houses were there, were there UFO sightings. But like you say now, and this isn't just recent, I understand that, a lot of people have been making these connections for years, but I think we're really in a more uniform place where we understand that there is a common holistic view that we need to take it as kind of phenomena, but it's not all completely separate or siloed.
I think that also with these experiences are also in our own frame of reference or our own context, and perhaps what we can understand is what is going on. If we're, brought up to believe in ghosts or know that ghosts exist, then we're looking at it in one perspective. Whereas if we are brought up or introduced early in life to the phenomenon of UFOs, then that could be what it is that we think that we're seeing, or we probably are seeing, just depending on the vibrational rate of whatever it is that's in front of us. Tell us about Mark D'Antonio and his experience as a child. Mark will also be one of our speakers at the conference, and he's a terrific guy. Thank goodness he's survived his surgeries. Yes. So, please tell us that story.
Mark he contributed to the book both with his experience and his viewpoint and theory on multiple universes. So very grateful to have him as a contributor and a friend and fellow investigator on this. Mark had a missing time incident on Burr Pond, which is up in that area where part of that paranormal flap is. And he was going to school, to a school trip as a young boy, and it was a field day at the pond, which is a state park in Torrington. And he remembers getting on the bus with his little lunch bag, and the next thing he remembers is he's on his way back down the same steps at his bus stop later that afternoon. And, of course, he was, pretty shocked and puzzled because he doesn't remember a thing from the last 10 hours. And he couldn't recall anything. And,
Wow.
To make a longer story short, he ended up having, what appeared to be seizures later on that night, and he was put on epilepsy medicine, which he realized, that he didn't need, and ended up stopping, eventually. But and that was just the beginning of his encounters with the paranormal. And then as an adult, he had a colloid cyst removed, which is not it's not harmful unless it's in a wrong position. So he had to have it taken out, and after that he started seeing and hearing these, what you would call, ghosts or spirits, and he had all kind of tests done, and the doctor said, well, no, it shouldn't have affected your, perception or anything like that. And then the next thing that happened to him is he ended up having an implant actually taken out, and it was conveniently lost. And through his talking to the doctor, the doctor was actually in the military, and Mark figured out, he doesn't like to be a conspiracy guy, but and he can never prove it either way, but it is, bizarre that pathology lost it. And he realizes the guy, based on when he said he was, in the military, that he would have still had his clearance. And so that, it could be related to that. Unfortunately, we'll never quite know from that. But so he had quite an extensive experience of, missing time on Burr Pond, and also, other sort of paranormal experience himself. And, so that was very fascinating. And he was also involved in the investigation, and he acted as, the guy who got my 8-page color insert reduced down to 4 pages because he showed me whatever optical illusions were, caught in photos as opposed to, what could be unexplainable and real phenomena. So, I was glad to have him on board for that. As much of a buzzkill as that could be sometimes, I'd rather that than have it be all true and,
That's right.
And, yeah, I mean, nothing was fake, but I think more of it, I think less of this stuff, maybe with UFOs some things are fake, but I think less of it is that, and more of it is just people who don't know how cameras work and how deceptive reflections and optics and things like that could be. And you take a picture and the place is active or the area is active and it has phenomena and you've experienced the phenomena there. And then when you see something come out in a photo, it's natural to say, well, there it is. There's the phenomena. So, but I want to be sure that these things were researched by people who knew what they're doing, and I know that I'm not one of them when it comes to optics. Just like if I looked in the sky and saw a UFO, I certainly wouldn't trust, my judgment, because what kind of expert am I on it seeing things in the air? I'm no expert, and Mark is. So, I think that's very important. That both what you see like that, and then like we were talking before, as far as perception is and the assumptions that we make, and how can we try not to make assumptions that we're all guilty of making in some degree, and try to step back from that and not just assume it's a spirit if it's inside and a UFO if it's outside. It could be other vice versa or whatever. So we try to look at it from all different angles now.
That's true. Thank you, Mark. One of the things I remember regarding Burr Pond, when he was brought to the hospital that evening because he was having seizures, they were trying to find out what happened, what the story was, and he said that he hit his head on the dock, and I guess never in the history of Burr Pond has there ever been a dock.
Right.
So.
Yeah, he didn't know what to say, and he panicked, and as little kid, you didn't want to really tell people what happened.
No,
I mean, didn't want to be weird or anything.
He didn't know. He did. The poor thing didn't know what that was all about.
Yeah.
So, going back to Paul and Ben Eno, Ben is 23 years old now. Didn't they started investigating that the farm back in 2005? Was it?
Yeah, 2005. Yeah, there's a picture.
So he would have been a young teenager at the time.
Yeah, little Ben. I say little Ben. I think he was 13 at the time.
13, yeah.
Yeah, on the camera. Yeah, it's just it's crazy. So, yeah, that was when they started.
And didn't they encounter on when they were trying to approach the property a military presence that kept them away? Not
the farmhouse, but right near that in Goshen in the area, there's all farmland there and areas where people would go fishing but Mark, separate times, but Mark D'Antonio as well as Paul have gotten chased out of there, by armed military guards, as well as some other people I interviewed. So, we do suspect that there's some sort of army base or secret army base, and we've had some confirmation from some people in the know that said kind of stay away from there.
Really?
Although now it's all fenced off and there's a farm there, but they actually built a farm, but nothing is happening or being done there at all. It's just unused land. So we believe they're probably there trying to figure out this energy area that's throughout the way. Maybe it's because of the UFO sightings there. Could be a combination of that.
So it seems like with the silos and the barn they put up, that it's just kind of a front, that they're just trying to blend in with the scenery. Is that what your summation is?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. because if it's located where we think it is, I don't see how, it would be sold or used as a farm by anybody else. I mean, I suppose it's possible if where they are is deep enough in the woods, but I would just think that they would just fence it off and just let the land sit there and keep people out,
Yeah,
based
exactly.
on,
Exactly.
having to kick people out before, and, word gets around in those rural areas. So, that would be the best guess at this point.
Can you describe and define what a flap is?
Yeah, and that's an interesting term. It's something that we use to describe what appears a large area of phenomena, whether you want to call it, caused by a large parallel world intersect, or a large portal or door, whatever you want to substitute for that. But it's a large area where phenomena is occurring at I would say, it's going to sound funny, greater than ordinary pace, because, as we say, the paranormal, of course, is everywhere, and, UFOs aren't limited to just Hudson Valley, or, so we know that, we've identified, triangular kind of area, but it's not like the flap just ends right at, a wall or anything, but it's the best guess of, what seems to be where most of this activity is isolated at a very abnormal strength, if you will. Kind of like we referred to it as a paranormal, well, Paul calls it paranormal circus or paranormal crossroads. It's just a very, very active area, very active land area there where a lot of phenomena occurs and has occurred for many, many years. I mean, there's been Bigfoot stories and sightings dating back many, many years. One famous one from, I think it was 1950, where that ended up a horse dying and trying to outrun Bigfoot, and stories of sky people visiting, where Mohawk Mountain is in that area. So there's just many, many years of this kind of stuff happening in those areas.
Can you tell us about Ashwar, the invisible friend of, was it Donna?
Yes, the grandson, when he was just starting, he couldn't even walk. He used to be playing in the living room, and he'd toddle over to the bathroom and look up, and like he was engaged in exchange with somebody and paying attention. They'd have to go and actually lift him up and bring him back to the living room. He was so engrossed in whatever was going on, and he'd point at the ceiling. As a matter of fact, we caught that Donna caught that on one of the first one of the home videos, and it's actually I put it. I didn't want it public for the family, but it's on the bonus page, with the book, where you can see him where he clearly sees something, and he's trying to point it out to his grandmother.
Wow.
And he starts pronouncing there Ashwar. He can't say it. He's just learning to speak. And later on, he tells his mother and grandmother that Ashwar is a little girl in a blue dress who died in a car accident and is stuck here observing in the tree, and she doesn't know where her mother is.
Oh.
It's just this bizarre story with a lot of details that are really out of character for his age. And then he starts, make a long story short, of course, but he puts toys around the tree outside, and they say, well, what are you doing? Well, I'm putting toys out for Ashwar. She's up stuck in the tree observing, And Paul was there, and Paul, was talking to the grandson about Ashwar, and said, well, is Ashwar here now? He says, oh, yeah. He said, where is Ashwar? And he pointed, he says, out there in the tree. She's out there in the tree. So he went out there. It was very dark, and he took his video camera, and he made he videoed it, and he didn't see anything at the time, but caught this thing on camera. And
wow.
It's really fascinating, and it happens to look exactly like these creatures or entities or aliens, whatever you want to call it, identical to what a fellow by the name of Gregory Harrell found when he was trying to catch vandals. He started filming these things, and he filmed them for a period of 2 years, and they look like a bunch of ashwars, and he believes they're aliens, and he studied their behavior. So I interviewed him for the book too. But it's really really a fascinating capture. Of a video of this thing that almost looks like kind of a white tadpole serpent thing that comes down, not on the tree, but kind of in front of the tree. Mark D'Antonio actually told us that it's not on the tree, and then dissipates into like a mist. And the mist part at the end is, I think, what really got me. Before you start thinking, well, could it be a squirrel? Could it be, and after you rule all this stuff out, once you see this thing kind of slither something down and then dissipate into mist, then you're like, well, now we've got something really bizarre.
Wow.
And that was quite a catch, if you will. So it's just so weird. So we think we caught ashwar on film, but that was quite a story about that. And that's just an example of the many things and experiences that are in the diary, and of course that happened around that area.
That's fascinating. So your book is available for purchase, correct?
Yes. It'll be in all stores and online August 17th. It's the official release date. It's available anytime from me if you want a signed copy from me at williamjhallauthor.com.
Okay.
And I look forward to talking about it at the convention.
Absolutely.
I look forward to hearing about it at the convention, too, because I'm sure I'm going to hear some things that are going to be related to
You will.
to bring it all together. So that's always exciting.
Absolutely. So we're very excited that you'll be joining us, and I'm sure you'll bring copies of your books so people will be able to purchase them, and you'll autograph them for them, I'm sure, too.
Oh, yes. Yeah, and that's, of course, the best place to get it because you don't want to miss the convention.
Terrific. So, well, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it very much, and we will see you very soon at the Greater New England UFO Conference in Leominster, Massachusetts on Saturday, October 17th.
Oh, my pleasure. Can't wait.
Okay, take care. Have a good evening.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Have you ever seen a UFO? Bigfoot or some ghosts? On Tactiles, there's Susie. She is the host. We really like to hear from you. You can tell us then all about the aliens. And if you're one of them, we really need to know. We really need to know. Really need to know, or we will come and get you in the night.